Today, a group of lawmakers vote to extend the state of disaster emergency declaration related to the Hantavirus. May 12th, Governor Laura Kelly issued that declaration. That's after 3 people in the state came into close contact with someone who tested positive for the Hantavirus and needed more monitoring. They were moved to KU Med in Kansas City. Last week, they were discharged and were able to return to their homes. They are voluntarily isolating at this time. So far, they are doing well and are asymptomatic. Still, they need to get to June 7th before they're considered to be in the clear. That declaration issued by the governor expires at midnight tonight. That's why they're asking for a 12-day extension. One lawmaker today questioned why this is considered an emergency in the state.
What's happened here is that these 3 individuals were on a flight with someone who was symptomatic sitting in front of them. And this person ultimately got off the airplane, did test positive for hantavirus, and did pass away. And so they were in close contact. By definition, the CDC, who did the contact tracing, contacted them and contacted us, which is what brought the situation forward.
Kansas health officials emphasizing that there are no confirmed cases of the Andes hantavirus in the state and the risk to the public remains low.